Hello, hello. So it is the 27th day of this daily vlog experience or experiment. I go back and forth. But let's talk about a few things today. So we are actually going to be talking about, of course, I'll give you fire updates, but we're also going to talk about building community and using myself as kind of a case study on how I've been able to build community prior to now and what it will, in my mind, look like in the foreseeable future. One article that, because I know I'm nerdy, one article that I'm going to root this conversation in is how to have close friendships and why you need them. This is a 2019 article in the Times. So I've been holding on to this because I have been, like this summer, I was going to talk about community, building friendships, ghosting, like all these different things. And I just am now getting around to it. So, hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. So let's first give an update for the fires. Because of course we are continuing to pray if you pray, or send kind thoughts, or supporting the different areas. So Eaton fire is now 99% contained. Whew. I mean, of course, happy about containment, but sad about what that, not only sad about, the devastation, but also knowing the gravity of rebuilding and how that will be a community effort. Really, I would say a national effort. So the Palisades is 95% contained. So I think it should be, hopefully both of them will be contained by the end of the week. The Hughes fire, which was by Six Flags, is now 98% contained. And then there is still a fire, it's 55% contained, a fire at the border in San Diego. So, so I'm on my Watch Duty app. So there are actually a few more fires across the nation. So there is one in, let's see, Arizona, one that's 1 acre in Arizona, the Howard fire. That was reported on the 26th. Then one that is 1.5 acres, also in Arizona. And then there's one in South Dakota. Wow, they've had fires too. I didn't realize. Well, yeah, South Dakota. There's one in South Dakota, 3.1 acres. So we want to hold all the folks in our thoughts and our prayers, and supporting the best way we can. Haven't heard back about the spiritual care piece that I told y'all about. But once I get the information, I will share so that folks can share with other people that might be interested in that kind of work, interested and experienced in that kind of work, because of the heaviness. Sometimes, especially when it's certain kinds of tragedies, from what I've learned is like, even if we mean well, like, it doesn't always mean that we have to be the ones to show up. Learned that from my therapist. Yeah. So, yeah. That being said, let's talk about this article. No, first let's talk about my friendship. Connecting dynamics here. So when I left Virginia, I had lots of friends. Lots and lots of friends. Close friends, distance friends, acquaintances. I had friends that I had known since elementary school. So that gives you the context of where I came from. A lot of the friends I had through school, through family members, people I met through jobs, people I met randomly in the street, just all these connections with folks, which on the outside, it's like, this is really great. But on the inside, there was a lot of codependency. There was also a lot of sense of like, I didn't want to be alone. And there was just this sense of feeling like I needed to be around a lot of people, folks. And I will say this, I'm still connected to a lot of folks back home. Like, part of what I'm about to share with shifting out here did not diminish my relationships with folks. Some things changed with some people, but those I would say were probably already on the outs. But generally, I still am connected to a lot of people. And when I say connected, like calling every once in a while. I don't see a lot of folks when I go back to Virginia, just because I usually go for particular reasons. But there's that. Okay, so let's talk about the article now, and then I want to talk about how I was intentional about building community here in LA, but also the trial and error that I found being here. So the article talks about how to have closer friendships and why we need them, by Emma Pattee, and it was published November 20th, 2019, and it was updated November 24th, 2019. So basically the premise of the article is the author is saying we need friends, ultimately. And we need to be able to be close to people. That is important. Closeness that is reciprocated is important. And she talks about how it is vital to our well-being, but that is complicated, right? It's not easy to have friends. It's not easy to transition from your different friendships and connections. And it's really hard to make friends for a lot of people. And I remember growing up, a lot of folks would say, and I come from the family. Let me tell you about my family. I don't talk about them often. My family is very interesting, to say the least. But I will say, I came from the family where I had a lot of cousins who would say, so-and-so is not your friend. Oh, so-and-so is not your friend. Now, for some folks, I was like, man, you don't know. But then for other folks, it was like, oh, you're right. The other thing I'll say about my parents, shout out to them, my parents can come off as hot or cold. They can be very warm, or they can be aloof, and they can be very cold, very stuffy. I'll say this, since they've gotten older though, they've really gotten into their nurturing bag. Like, they're really, they've done some soul searching, I don't know what they've done, but they've really have gained such a high level of emotional maturity as I've gotten older that has been appreciated. But they've been hot and cold. So saying that to say a lot of the opinions that they had on some folks were true. We'll leave it at that. So let's talk about this social neuroscientist, John Cacioppo. He talks about the study of loneliness, and he passed away in 2018. And you can read all about the loneliness epidemic that is prevalent during this time. I won't get into that. If you're interested, I encourage you to look it up. So the author is also talking about how, especially when I think about like the girl boss era, that was a whole thing, or bossing up and all the things, how a lot of times we might have focused on our careers and financial accomplishments and things that really gave us school, that gave us status, versus relationships for a lot of people. For me, to really know me is to know that I would put, from the outside looking in, I achieved a lot of things, but I achieved them and did all these things in between my interpersonal relationships, in between navigating family dynamics. It took me moving here to really put myself first. And anytime I did that back home, I often would overcorrect just because I really had to get things done. And so I might have had to retreat from, not might have, I retreated a lot of times, but I would always let my folks know, hey, just so you know, I have a lot going on. So you might not hear from me for a few months, but when I'm ready, I'll get back. I always thought it was important to let my people know if there was going to be a shift in communication, if there was going to be a shift in something happening. Just, I'm overly communicative. Y'all already know I talk a lot. And yeah. And I'll also say, like, with my personal life, that I often put my personal life ahead of other things, other, career things over education. Now, mind you, again, I've been able to achieve a lot, but it is early nights and late mornings. I mean, it's early mornings and late nights, right? Trying to fit in my life around other people's schedules was something that I really had to work on in therapy because of codependency and issues with abandonment. So keeping it real. All right. So this article talks about 5 techniques on working on our friendship. So as I talk about this article, I'm going to talk about when I came to LA. So coming to LA was very important for me because I had already done the therapy piece. I had already shared with some of my close friends my fears that, oh my gosh, I mean, I would talk to them ad nauseum just about, I really don't want our friendship to change. I really don't want my friendships to change with folks when I'm in LA. Like, I really hope I can maintain it. And a lot of people were like, oh no, don't worry about it. Some of the don't worry about it people were not as close. And that took me a long time to really process, which I talked about, I think, in my mental yoga video. And I've since, of course, processed it and accepted it, and letting things be what they are. But that was a major fear. And when I came out here, I was like, okay, I want community. I wanted friendship when I first came out here, but I really wanted community. I wanted a group of people that I could be, that I could have reciprocal accountability to, a group of people for whom, we could do things and that we could engage in regular intervals, and like we could do activities and we had things to do and plans, and I could expect people and they could expect me to show up. And so that was something that was very important to me, because in addition to all my friendships, I also, which is why I talk about church a lot, because church was one of the first things that I decided to connect with when I came out here. And it took me a while to find church. I've talked about that. But because back home, I had church communities. I had professional communities. I had yoga community. In addition to all my friends and all these other things, and I was on boards and all these, and yeah, so lots of communities. And so that was just important for me to do that, because number one, the first technique is create a foundation of security. And so I wanted to have a larger sense of community here because I didn't know how folks were in terms of building friendships. I didn't know how it was going to be. I didn't know if it was going to be hard. I didn't know if people were going to be kind. I didn't know how different I would be. Would I be kind? Would I be my same self? Would I be, would the experience of moving be so traumatic that I would be somebody that I would, as a way to cope, become a different person? Didn't know those things. What I did know was, okay, I can connect with a church, and churches have activities. Churches support spiritual formation. Church is what I'm used to. Y'all know I'm churchy. I always talk about church. And so that's what I set out to do, so that I could have a foundation of security. And so the author quotes a Dr. Levine. Let me see, what is Dr. Levine's first name? Dr. Amir Levine, a psychiatrist and neuroscientist, he's the author of Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love. Now we supposed to be talking about friends, and they talk about, well, friendships is a type of love, so there's that. So according to Dr. Levine, these are the 5 foundations of secure relationships: consistency. Do these friends drift in and out of my life on a whim? Availability. Are y'all able to spend time together? Reliability. Can you count on them? Responsiveness. Do they reply to your emails or texts? Predictability. Can I count on them to act in a certain way? And this reminds me of attachment styles, which you can also look up. But it was just so important for me to have that foundation. I didn't know a lot of people when I came here, but what I will say, thankfully, I already came with folks that I was connected to deeply. And I've shared this before. I was connected to my childhood friend who we evacuated together. That's my girl. So I knew she was here. I didn't connect with her right away when I moved here because I really wanted to see who I was, because I could have fallen into a version of my old self. And so I really wanted to take that time to just see, who is Tanya? Who is Callie Boosie? What does that look like? And then I have another close friend, very close friend from college, who I call my godson, even though technically he's not that much younger than me, but yeah. And then a great friend from grad school. So I'd already come here with anchors. And so that also gave me a sense of security. But I still wanted a community, wraparound community. And in my pursuit for looking for community, I also decided to immerse myself into, as y'all seen through the vlogs, like into different film communities and things like that. And so finding connections, but nothing too long-term and too deep. Also immersing myself in writing communities that actually proved to be very fruitful. One of the folks that I would now consider a sister to me, love you now, met her through a writing community. Another very close, I would still consider this other friend close, love her down, through writing community. Yeah. So in my pursuit of that, I found very boundary filled reciprocal friendship. And I want to say this about our friendship: the 2 people that I'm mentioning that was so powerful in our friendship is when we first decided to be friends. Well, let me tell you, I met them at a writing event and they were sitting across from me, and I didn't even talk to them like that, but I was like, oh, I want to connect, because we were like talking and all these things in a larger group, and I was like, oh, they might be cool to be friends with. And so I just reached out to them. And I'm one of those people that sometimes it bites me in the butt, but if I feel like it's a cool connection, I'm going to reach out to be friends with folks. And I'm always going to lean to friendship first, whether it is whatever the situation is. I'm always going to lean to friendship first. And just a phenomenal setting. Just a phenomenal way to set off what friendship would look like here in LA from a very healed place. So being able to talk about how often we would meet. Now, did life get in the way? Absolutely. But we were able to have those conversations, how often we would meet, how often we would respond. So what we often do is, because we have a group chat and then we have separate chats with each other. But generally, if one of us reaches out within now, with all the fires and things like that and us checking in, I hadn't been able to respond in the group chat quickly, but I would say within 24 hours for the most part, I always try to acknowledge the text, and then I will, even if I can't respond then, I'll acknowledge it and let them know that, hey, can you give me a little bit of time so that I can respond, so I can process and respond. And that is something that I've started to do moving forward. Now, do I miss some text sometimes? Yes, because I get a lot of texts. I told you I talk to a lot of people. I told you I'm connected to a lot of people. And now that I'm really into my life here, which we'll talk about, I'm connected to lots of communities. And so I'm learning how to balance that in this season of my life. So, my stomach just growled. Um, I mean, I don't even know if y'all heard that, but my stomach just growled. But yeah, so that was important when I was building new friendships. And also we talked about just almost like the purpose of not almost like the purpose of our friendship, and being able to encourage and to support each other in very specific ways. And actually one of them, and again, I don't say folks' names because I don't ask for their consent, but one of them I will say, or because I haven't asked for their consent yet, but one of them said, you know, how can we support each other? And I remember the first outing that we went out, we went to the library, and I think I talked about that in a video.